and welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the show where I interview the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Michael Truluck. Michael is someone who I'm very pleased to have known for many years now, and he's had a wealth of experience within the international retail world. He's currently the CEO for Redoute, and prior to that, also won a number of awards, including Finance Director of the Year, and worked with various different businesses internationally before then taking over this role. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you very much, Leila.
So talk to me, Michael. We've not seen each other in a little while, and obviously it would be great to hear, and for all of our listeners, what you've been up to of late.
Wow, big question, what I've been up to of late. So just to give a bit of information for your listeners in terms of the role that I have. So Michael Truluck, CEO of Redoute International. So I look after everything for Redoute outside of France. So what that means is it involves a lot of travel, a lot of different countries to visit. So as of late, I'd say the big things have been about Black Friday, Cyber Weekend, including Cyber Monday, which is quite a huge part of our retail calendar. Most retailers, big part of their retail calendar too. And in terms of that, I've been doing a lot of traveling to different countries that we have within our portfolio of countries, and obviously keeping a keen eye on what's happening with trading.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I know every time I speak to you, you seem to be in another country looking after a different project of some kind. And I mean, talk to me a little bit about, I guess what's happened recently, because obviously Redoute's gone through some very exciting changes and now owned by a French business,
Correct.
Lafayette.
Yeah, so from a shareholder point of view, we have had a change of shareholder. So Galeries Lafayette have purchased 51% shares within Redoute. That went through last year. Before that, we had a management buyout of the company and went through a huge transformation plan to convert ourselves from what was a traditional mail order company into a leading e-commerce company. And that leading e-commerce company being global too, so covering various geographies around the world and focusing on what we call our lifestyle positioning, so both fashion and homes in terms of product offering to our customers.
I guess before we get into some of the, the meat of the conversation today, I guess, around culture and a number of the pieces that I know you're very passionate about, it'd be great for you to share perhaps a little with our listeners about your personal background and, how you almost came to be where you are today. Because I know that I think you were 27, weren't you, when you started for the former company and literally rose through the ranks into now what is actually quite a feminine business and formerly had a very masculine upbringing, I think you said.
Correct. So I'll start from the beginning then. For some people, they'll get a little bit of a twang within my accent. So originally from South Africa. When I say the word South Africa, it sounds quite South African. But I am married to a Yorkshire lass, so hence my accent has changed quite significantly over time. So at the age of 18, I left South Africa, moved over to the UK, worked for a company called Condé Nast, who published Vogue, GQ, Vanity Fair, a number of different glossy titles. I actually met my wife there. She was studying to be a teacher at the time, but wanted to teach really in the north of England. I was able to convince her to teach in London for a few years, and then after that, up we went to the north of England and set up family, etc. there. Then I worked for a company called Peter Black's, and around 13 years ago, migrated across to what was Redcats, which stood for Redoute Catalog. So the company that I still work for today, but we've undergone a huge amount of change through that period of time, from being a multi-brand portfolio to them being a mono-brand, but with multi-country in terms of my own remit. You touched on the feminine side there. Obviously, I've got two older brothers. I was brought up in quite a masculine household at the time. However, my mother was a domestic goddess, and as a result, we had to be very domesticated in all the different things. So whether it was about cooking, baking, sewing, knitting, I had a lot of that experience when I was younger, and it still puts me in good stead today in terms of being pretty adept to be able to do those things within the home. As a brand for Redoute, though, we are a very feminine brand. So when we look at our competitors within the market, we see some of those as being quite masculine. When I say masculine, they're quite transactional based, so they do that really efficiently, really well. There's quite a big one out there called Amazon that I would classify as quite a masculine brand in terms of the way that they transact. Whereas for Redoute, we want you to come on the site, we want you to really interact with all of the different product offering that we have and to browse through the website. So it's not just about coming on and searching for a product, it's more going on, getting inspired, finding items that fit well together, building a wardrobe or fitting out a whole room. So what we do internally is really we want to make sure that people dress themselves and dress their homes with our lifestyle proposition that we have to our customers. And then we try and do that in a really feminine way.
Fascinating. And I bet your two girls love all of this, don't they?
Oh, yes. So definitely. So from a family point of view, I don't know whether they love it as much as what I love it, but it's great to have people that are really within target audience with my wife, and then obviously with two younger daughters, and they are all very loyal La Redoute shoppers.
And do you find then your upbringing, if you don't mind me asking, kind of really helps these days with the fact that you are at the helm of what is, as you've described, a very kind of feminine brand?
I think the upbringing does help, definitely, and the fact that my mother is Lebanese, my father was English, I grew up in South Africa, I work for a French company, so there's a huge multicultural and diverse mix of different things that I've had to go through, and I think that has really helped form me into what I'd call a multifaceted leader. And then obviously the role that I'm doing too covers a lot of different geographies. So we've got the European geographies where we have offices within places like the UK, but also Belgium, Switzerland, Portugal, Spain, and then we have some further afield in places like Russia. So you see a really big mix in terms of cultures and ways of working.
Mm-hmm. And talk to me a little more kind of about the culture and the importance of the culture piece when it comes to leadership, because I think in this kind of modern, volatile and uncertain world that we live in, those that are not connected to culture and internationalism almost are going to, I think, be left behind the curve.
Yeah, so the international part, obviously that's a great thing with being an international company like La Redoute. So we have a lot of different international cultures coming through the group, and we're able to use that as a key strength and way that we do things. So we can bring new ideas from different markets. So even when we look at things like the e-commerce market, the UK is one of the leaders in e-commerce markets, so we can use the knowledge that comes from the UK market to spread that in markets where e-commerce is really low in terms of penetration, especially in the southern European areas, so places like Portugal and Spain, where e-commerce penetration is much lower than in the UK. So this gives us a key strength, and because of that, in Portugal, for example, this year we have won e-commerce retailer of the year award, and that was on all e-commerce. Yeah, so it's great, and the Portuguese team have done a great job to be able to be in that position within the market. So it's really these types of things that we can utilize as a skill across the entire group. And then within the different leaderships that we have got CEOs in each country that report to myself. And the majority of those CEOs are all local people. So they are from those countries. They understand the cultures, they understand the customers, they understand the employees that we have. And then through that, as part of a global organization, driving the same values that we have as a group, we're able to achieve success.
And how important is it? You say that all of your CEOs are local, so I guess they understand all those those finite cultural idiosyncrasies. Was that a purposeful decision?
It was, yeah. For myself personally, it was a purposeful decision. So when I took on the role, I had a few people who were what I call expatriates within the roles. Now within the roles that we have, as I said earlier, the majority of people are local within those different positions. I would still look at some of the people that we have got that historically have come from France, but those people generally now are pretty much like locals because they've been in these countries for a very long period of time. So they've really absorbed the cultural parts that go with it. But from that, it's really great to be able to put all these different people in a room together, and we do that every 6 months. We have an away day with all of my team. And with that, we're then working through what I call skills acquisition, normally for one day, so gaining a new skill for all the different leaders that we have. And then the second day is really business focused, but you can see a diverse mix of ideas, different approaches to things. And from that, I think we really become really much stronger than what we could be if we were just thinking in one particular type and way.
And what for you, because I can see that diversity and inclusion is very, very important to you, Michael. How would you define diversity and inclusion within yourself and I guess within the wider business context at La Redoute? Yeah,
so for me, I'd say mine is a simple sentence in terms of it. So diversity and inclusion for me is ensuring that we are not treating anybody discriminatory, regardless of their sex, their gender, their country, their disability. And that's from an employee point of view, but also from a customer point of view. Obviously, we are not just looking internally when we're talking about diversity and inclusion. We also look externally in terms of our customer base.
Absolutely. And it's so important, I think, these days, because it makes that business sense. We need to be appealing to this wide audience because it is the future customer base, of course.
Oh, it is. And even internally, I mean, from an employee point of view, we have got a small measurement that I get each month and then circulate that to different countries, which is about our staff shopping. So we actually measure not what people are buying, but how much people are buying and the evolution of that because a key metric that I see is that our employees should be our first customers, because if our employees aren't willing to buy from us, why should our customers be willing to? So it's really important to ensure that we've got employees who are really passionate about our products and consuming them also.
How interesting. Have you seen any interesting trends from the employee purchase?
Well, we've seen a big increase mainly because of the homes offering. So homes really for us is a key growth lever that we've implemented across all the different geographies that we are in. So homes now is really a category that we're seeing strong growth in. But equally, we see different things within different countries. So in Switzerland, for example, we see the highest order values coming through in Switzerland versus places like Portugal where the values are quite a bit lower. So we do see big differences there. But I say a lot of that is driven by the economics within those countries too.
And have you got any tips for any of our listeners or our viewers today on how to, I guess, really cohesively bind together, international leaders from all different walks of life? Because clearly you're dealing with lots of leaders in their home countries. Are there ever, I don't know, any tips that you might be able to give us, or any examples that you could give us where you...
Of course. So I'd say the key things that we've looked at there, I've taken on this role 6 years ago, looking after international. And one of the first things I had was to put all the different leaders together and for us to go through understanding ourselves and understanding each other. So in doing that, we've done different workshops, and as I touched on earlier with skills acquisition, things like Myers-Briggs type indicators. We've looked at Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. We've done things about leader shadow. We've looked at authentic presenting. But I'd say the most important thing is putting people together, giving them the space to communicate, and ensuring that people are able to listen to each other. And from that, we can see that real cohesion coming. So it's really facilitating the environment is, I'd say, the most important thing for that to happen. And then we use different tools to make it happen, whether it's the Myers-Briggs type indicators, etc. But I see those really as the tools that we're using. And then it's really having those people in the same proximity as each other that really drives those strong and rich discussions.
Have you ever had a clash of cultures at all between your leaders?
Oh, I'd say clash of cultures between leaders, I'd more say that we've got a different approach to doing things. And within that, I see 2 really clear areas. We have one group of people who are very what I'd call Latin cultured, and another group which are more Anglo-Saxon cultured. And they have different approaches to doing things. So the Latin culture one has a lot more passion, probably I'd say a lot more energy. The Anglo-Saxon one is a lot more organized, structured, process-driven. So you do see these differences that come through. What I do love about it is that we can mix the 2. So because we've got all of these together, we can mix them to bring in place something that is passionate, creative, with structure, which doesn't normally go together. So we can really mix these 2 things that normally would clash with each other.
And do you see yourself in a particular, I don't know, in a particular type of culture yourself almost? Perhaps I didn't ask that in the most articulate way, because obviously, your mother and father have come from different places, you're working in an international environment, you're living in the UK. Do you think you've kind of got more of any specific culture than others?
So I think if you ask the people that I work with in France, they would say I'm definitely Anglo-Saxon cultured. I think if you ask the Anglo-Saxon ones, they would say that I've become more French and Latin cultured. So it's a little bit in between.
So you're a hybrid.
And I think I am a bit of a hybrid. But if I was to choose only one, I'd say Anglo-Saxon, because that's really what's in my DNA and within the roots of where I've come from.
Very good. And what we'd like to do now, just before we kind of wrap up, is just go into a quick lightning round.
Oh, okay.
And if you don't mind, so we'll give you 30 seconds or thereabouts to answer each question. But what for you, Michael, is your secret to success? For those who are listening in or watching this fireside chat thinking, do you know, I'd love to be an international CEO one day. What has been your secret to success to date?
So I'd say secret, there isn't one secret, I would say, but I would put it down to really strong hard work, determination, being passionate about what I do.
So no one silver bullet, it's a number of things.
It's a number of things, but you've got to love what you're doing, you've got to have passion for it. I'd say that's the most important thing. And then once you've got that, you've got to work damn hard. And that's how I believe you achieve success.
I absolutely agree on the working damn hard piece.
Yeah.
And is there any advice that you might have given to your younger self, to the young Michael, when you were growing up, wondering what you wanted to be when you were older?
The advice was a difficult one. I've got to try and answer this in 30 seconds. When I was younger, I wanted to become a marine biologist, to be fair. And then, that was one of my thoughts that I was, because I love the ocean and all the different elements that went with that. But in the end, I discovered that wasn't going to have a huge amount of money that went with it. So for me, I wanted then to go into something that was going to be able to sustain me in a better way. So the advice I would give to myself, really, probably coming back again to the passionate piece, be passionate about what you do. The advice I'd give to myself more recently is try and get a better balance between work and family, because that hard work piece really does create an issue when you try and balance between the two, especially when you're traveling to multiple different geographies and countries.
Mm-hmm. I'm diverting slightly out of the line around here just because I really want to ask you about that piece. I think it's something that so many leaders struggle with, that work-life balance piece. And I think CEOs, when I meet CEOs, they often say this, there's always one that has to be sacrificed. How does one balance the two?
It's really hard. I mean, I'm a hypocrite on this one, because whenever I do development reviews with my CEOs, I tend to draw two different diagrams. One which is about an ocean and a buoy on an ocean, and the fact that they need to keep a balance within a certain space.
Tell me more about that.
So effectively you have an anchor at the bottom of the ocean, and then you have a rope and the buoy on the top. And for me, you look at where people are in terms of that buoy moving, but it can't move too far because you have a weight down at the bottom that keeps it in its place. And then it's how we ensure that people are moving in the right positions between that without moving the base of who they really are. So that's about developing them and really growing them. But the other one really is what I call the three-legged table. And the three-legged table is that they need to try and balance between work as one leg, themselves individually as another leg, and their family as the third leg. And if you can get the balance between the three legs, the table is really stable. If you start putting too much on one leg, the table's going to fall over. So this is why I say I'm hypocritical, because I know that I don't have the balance between those, unfortunately. So I don't think I can really honestly answer that in an easy way. What I would say is that when you do have the family time, it's really try to ensure that you try and make that quality family time when you're with them.
I really like that analogy, and it's so true with the three legs. Yeah. I'm sure that people who are listening in are thinking, I haven't got a balance, because I think it is a constant. No.
It's really hard to do it. And as I say, I would be lying if I said that I had that balance. Unfortunately, it's far more of the work side of things, and being international makes that even harder with traveling to different places. But the key thing is trying to get that balance is really making it good quality time. And my wife's great at that, because she's really good at organizing things on weekends. So I tend to have a full agenda when I get back in terms of these are all the great things we're going to do to ensure that family time is really good quality.
Brilliant. Well, very lucky to have such a fantastic wife then that keeps the home life stable and organised when you come back. Sorry for the digression.
It's okay.
I couldn't help myself but ask. And last couple of questions. What's authentic leadership to you? So
authentic leadership, I'm going to refer back to a quote that I heard. I don't know where the quote came from, and I think it was in something I read either in a book or on a website or something, which was that it's better to be a good version of yourself than to be impersonating somebody else, or a bad impersonator of somebody else. So I'd say authentic leadership is being a good version of yourself and not trying to impersonate somebody else.
I like that quote. I'll remember that one.
Yeah.
And finally, who has inspired you most throughout your career to date?
I'd say career-wise, I'm probably going to go back a bit earlier than that, but I'd probably say my mother and father, to be honest. Both of them were very entrepreneurial. So my father had his own businesses in South Africa. My mother was a hairdresser and got that to already, lots of different hairdressing salons, also did catering on the side. So I'd say between the two of them, that really is what got me into that entrepreneurial mindset. And it kind of spread throughout the family. So we had a lot of different aunts and uncles were also all entrepreneurs. So it really got you into that space where when we sat down for dinner and we used to have family meals, I'd say like broader family meals at least once a week on a weekend, most of the discussion was really business focused. So from a young age, you really got instilled into that way of thinking.
How fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you ever so much, Michael, for joining me today. It's been really insightful, And actually, I love the analogy of the buoy and the stool, the table with the three legs.
Yeah.
I'm sure that many will be thinking, I wonder which of mine needs to be bolstered up a little bit when they listen to this podcast. So thanks ever so much for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Certainly learned a lot. My name's Leila McKenzie, and you've been listening to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the podcast, with Michael Truluck, who's the CEO for Redoute. It's been a really fascinating conversation today. Learned a huge amount, especially about international cultural environments, authentic leadership, and actually really trying to get that balance between work, yourself, and also the home life. If there's any further questions at all that you might like to ask following on from today's podcast or from the Fireside chat, please do reach out to me or to Michael, who's on LinkedIn, and you can visit www.dalglobal.org/podcast, and we'll also be airing a YouTube version of the show as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, and see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.